So here's how it all started, or at least how I remember it. 5 years into the marriage, and I thought we were doing all right. Nothing out of the ordinary, work, dinners, a few vacations here and there. I'm Tom, a 35-year-old marketing manager, and I guess you could say I'm your average guy. I've never been some Casanova, and I didn't exactly expect fireworks every day of our lives together. My wife, Lisa, though, well, she started to see things differently. She's 33, a graphic designer with this passion for art and fashion, always looking for that next big thing to make her feel alive. I just didn't know back then that she was looking for more, a hell of a lot more. Our 5th anniversary was supposed to be special, or at least I thought it would be. I put effort into planning this whole evening out. We went to one of those fancy places, the kind that plays soft piano music in the background and charges you triple for a steak, just because it's got some herbs on top. I even set up this slideshow, a series of our memories over the years, all the trips we'd taken, holidays spent with family, goofy moments in our first apartment. Thought it'd be a sweet touch. But while the pictures rolled on that screen, Lisa just sat there, staring blankly at her wine glass. At first, I thought maybe she was tired or stressed about work. But then I started noticing how she kept glancing around, watching other couples and groups laughing, and having the kind of time that was way louder, way freer than what we were having. She looked disappointed, like somehow she was missing out. We barely talked during dinner. I tried to make some small talk, to reminisce about our wedding day, but she wasn't into it, just nodding along, pushing her food around her plate. I tried to laugh it off, thinking maybe she'd come around later, but there was this sinking feeling in my gut, like a quiet alarm ringing in the background. I brushed it off as my own paranoia. After all, how bad could it be? Bad. Real bad. That night after we got home, it all blew up. I don't even know how it started. We were just lying in bed, and I made a comment, something stupid about how we should do a weekend trip somewhere, just the two of us. She sighed, and not the kind of sigh where you're tired but happy. No, it was that deep, frustrated sigh, like something heavy had been sitting on her chest for a long time. And then she just unloaded. "Tom," she said, sitting up and turning on the lamp. "I can't keep pretending like everything's fine." "What are you talking about?" I asked, trying to sit up too, but feeling like my body was sinking into the mattress. "I'm talking about us. Our marriage," she said, and right there, my stomach dropped. "I feel like we're stuck, like I'm missing out on something." "Missing out?" I echoed. "What do you mean? We've got a good life. We're comfortable. We've got security. We're bored, Tom. We're boring." She cut me off. "All we do is work, come home, watch TV, go to sleep, and do it all over again. I need more excitement, more emotion. I need to feel alive." I was stunned. I didn't even know what to say at first. We weren't teenagers anymore, but we weren't dead either. We had a life, a stable, decent life. But apparently, that wasn't enough for Lisa. And then she said it, that one thing that still rings in my ears when I lie awake at night. "Maybe we should try seeing other people." I couldn't believe it. I felt like I'd just been slapped across the face. Open relationships? Was she serious? Here we were, married for 5 years, and she wanted to just throw it all away because she was bored. I couldn't even find the words to respond. I was angry, hurt, confused, like a tornado of emotions ripping through my head. "What? So that's it?" I snapped. "You want to screw around with other people because our life isn't exciting enough for you? You think just hooking up with strangers is going to magically make everything better?" "It's not about screwing around, Tom," she said, trying to sound calm, but I could hear the tremor in her voice. "It's about feeling connected, feeling something new. You don't understand." "You're damn right I don't understand," I said, my voice raising. "You want a connection? How about we fix what we have instead of running to someone else the second things get tough?" She just shook her head. "I don't know if we can fix this, Tom. I don't even know if I want to." Those words were like a knife to the chest. We sat there in silence after that, both of us staring at the wall, worlds apart even though we were inches away. That's when I realized we were living in the same house, but we were on different planets. Over the next few days, I felt like a zombie. I couldn't focus at work, couldn't talk to friends without feeling like I was lying through my teeth. I needed to make sense of it all, so I started writing. Every night, I'd grab a notebook and just spill everything out. All my anger, my confusion, my desperation to hold on to what we had. It was stupid, but writing in that journal felt like the only thing keeping me sane. We tried to make things work, at least at first. Lisa suggested we go out to dinner at our favorite spot, some small Italian place with those red checkered tablecloths and the best lasagna you've ever tasted. I thought it'd be a good chance to talk, to reconnect, but all we did was talk in circles. I'd start by asking about her day, trying to ease into a conversation, but it always went the same way. She'd bring up her dreams, all the things she wanted to do, places she wanted to go, how she wanted to explore life. But when I talked, it was always about work. I guess I didn't even notice it at the time, but all I could do was ramble about my latest project, the deadlines, the stress. I thought I was sharing my life with her, but to her, it was just noise. She tried to smile, tried to listen, but I could tell she was far away, somewhere I couldn't reach. And just like that, dinner would end. We'd go home, sleep in the same bed, but it was like there was this invisible wall between us. Looking back, I should have seen the cracks forming a lot earlier. But then again, sometimes you only see things clearly when it's too late to do anything about them. You'd think after that disastrous anniversary, we'd try to sort things out, right? Well, that was wishful thinking. If anything, things got worse, and it all seemed to spiral out of my control. It was like Lisa had found a new gear, and I was left sputtering along, trying to catch up. She started spending a lot more time with Sarah, her best friend, who was always more of a free spirit type. I never had an issue with Sarah before, but the more time Lisa spent with her, the more I felt like this wedge was being driven between us. Suddenly, Lisa had a million things to do, places to be, and none of them involved me. Cafes I'd never heard of, clubs I'd never been to, and God knows what happened at those yoga classes they attended. It's like she was discovering this whole new world, and I wasn't invited. I'd come home from work, exhausted, expecting to have dinner and maybe watch a movie like we used to, but she'd be out, either at some trendy new place or hunched over her phone, her fingers flying across the screen, texting who knows who. She got real good at hiding her phone too. If I walked into a room, she'd quickly lock it or flip it face down, pretending like nothing was up. Yeah, right. I tried to get her to talk about it, about us. One night, I asked her if we could just sit down, have a meal, and catch up. She suggested this hipster spot, some sushi place that looked more like an art gallery than a restaurant. I wasn't comfortable there, but it didn't matter. The minute we sat down, I could feel the tension building. She didn't waste any time either. Right after ordering, she launched into this whole thing about rules and boundaries. I remember feeling my stomach tighten, like I knew what was coming, but I couldn't brace myself fast enough. Tom, I think we need to have a serious discussion about the way we're living our lives, she started, and I just nodded, already exhausted from whatever crap she was about to throw at me. I feel like we need to make some changes. Maybe establish new boundaries. What are you talking about, Lisa? I said, trying to sound calm, even though I felt anything, but she leaned in like she was about to share some great secret. Look, I know you don't like the idea of seeing other people, but what if we just experimented? What if we had open dates? Nothing serious, just casual dinners or drinks with new people. There was open dates, casual dinners. Like this was some kind of harmless hobby. I sat there, staring at her, my head spinning. I couldn't believe she actually thought this was a solution. So let me get this straight. You want to just go out with other people and what? Pretend we're not married. I asked, my voice rising. It's not like that, Tom, she snapped back, clearly frustrated. It's about experiencing something new. Just seeing what's out there, feeling alive again. Alive? Are you kidding me? I couldn't control my anger anymore. You think going on dates with random strangers is going to fix whatever you think is broken between us? That's just you running away, Lisa. You don't want to work on this. You just want an excuse to act like you're single. She got up, knocking her chair back, and I could feel the eyes of everyone around us turning our way. I don't know if I want to work on this, Tom. Maybe, Maybe I don't know if I want to be married to you anymore, she said, her voice cracking. And with that, she stormed out. I remember sitting there, stunned, the sushi untouched in front of me, wondering how in the hell we ended up here. All I could think was, this isn't the woman I married. Or maybe she was, and I just never really knew her at all. Days turned into weeks, and things only got worse. Lisa would come and go as she pleased, and I stopped trying to keep track of her. One night, I overheard her on the phone, talking to Sarah about some new guy she met online, giggling like a schoolgirl. When I confronted her, she brushed it off like it was nothing. "It's just a chat, Tom. It's not a big deal," she'd say, rolling her eyes. But it felt like a big deal to me. And it only got worse from there. I noticed she'd spend hours on dating apps, her face lit up by that damn screen. I tried to ignore it, but I felt like I was going crazy, thinking about who she was talking to and what they were saying. Then one day, I saw a name flash across her screen, Dave. Just seeing that name made me want to punch a wall. I knew it wasn't just some chat. It was the beginning of something that I wasn't ready to deal with. Lisa, of course, was practically glowing around that time, all bubbly and excited. She had this energy about her that made me sick because I knew it wasn't for me, and I had no idea how to react. I'd sit alone in our living room, staring at the walls, trying to figure out where I'd gone wrong. Had I missed something? Was it really my fault that she wanted? Whatever the hell this was, eventually I stopped trying to talk to Lisa altogether. I'd come home, and if she was there, I'd head straight to the bedroom or go out for a drive. There was no point in fighting it. It only seemed to make things worse. But that didn't mean I was handling it well. That's when I started spending more time with Den's a buddy from work. Always been a bit of a joker, the type who believes in living life with no regrets. I hadn't told him much about what was going on at home, but one night, over drinks at a dive bar, I spilled the whole story. "Mate, screw that noise," he said, waving his beer around. "If she's out there living her best life, why the hell shouldn't you? You're a good guy, Tom, but you need to stop letting her walk all over you. Come out with me. Have some fun for once." At first, I resisted. Den was the type to hit up clubs and flirt with anyone who looked his way, and that just wasn't me. But as the weeks went on and Lisa continued her little adventure, making new friends, chatting with strangers, pretending like we were roommates instead of a married couple, I felt this anger rising in me. Anger, frustration, and yeah, revenge. It wasn't long before I let Den drag me out to some club on the edge of the city. The place was packed, the music loud enough to drown out all my thoughts, and for once, I was okay with that. I just wanted to forget Lisa, forget the marriage, forget everything. And that's where the story really starts to take a turn. The tipping point came one night after yet another argument. By this point, our fights were routine. I'd ask her where she was going, and she'd snap back that she didn't need to explain herself. I was always on edge, and she was always looking for the exit. We fought, yelled, threw accusations at each other like knives. And then one night, as she walked out the door to God knows where, something in me snapped. I was done. That night, I called up Denver. I didn't even need to explain. He knew from the tone of my voice what was up. "Come on, man," he said. "Let's hit the club. You need to get out of that house. Stop letting her control your headspace. Tonight's about you, all right?" So that's how I found myself, a 35-year-old married guy, walking into a crowded club like I was back in college. The music was pounding, the lights were flashing, and the energy, God, it was electric. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't thinking about Lisa, her bullshit rules, or her open dates. I just wanted to feel free and maybe a little reckless. Den wasted no time getting us drinks, pulling me straight to the bar, and ordering shots like we were on some wild boys' night out. I downed a few just to take the edge off, and before long I could feel the buzz kicking in. For the first time in ages, I felt lighter. I wasn't trapped in my own head, wasn't weighed down by the endless thoughts of my crumbling marriage. And that's when I saw her, Kaylee. She was standing by the dance floor, moving to the beat like it was the most natural thing in the world. I don't know what drew me to her. Maybe it was the way her long brown hair fell over her shoulders, or how her smile seemed so damn genuine. like she was really enjoying herself. She was younger than me, 28 maybe, but she carried herself with this confidence that made her seem older. I'd like to say I hesitated, but that'd be a lie. I wanted to forget, and she looked like a damn good way to do that. Dan nudged me, already grinning like an idiot. What are you waiting for? Go talk to her, man. Worst case, she tells you to piss off. And that's what I did. I walked right up to her, trying my best to not seem like a desperate old guy crashing the party. Hey, I said, raising my drink. You look like you're having a way better time than I am. Mind if I join you? She looked me over, not in a dismissive way, but like she was genuinely sizing me up, and then she flashed that smile again. Why not? I could use a dance partner. And just like that, I was in. We spent the entire night on that dance floor, moving to the music like we were the only two people in the room. I hadn't felt like that in years. Not since before Lisa started pulling away, and maybe not even then. Kaylee was magnetic, the kind of woman who makes you feel like you're the only guy in the world. And as the night went on, the drinks kept flowing, and we got closer. I could feel the tension between us. Every time our hands touched, every time she leaned in to say something in my ear, and the way she looked at me, there was no doubt what she wanted. It was almost like she could see right through me, see the mess I'd become, and somehow still find something worth smiling about. Around 2 a.m., the club was starting to clear out, and Kaylee turned to me, biting her lip in this playful way. So, how about we do this again sometime? Like a real date. No loud music, no flashing lights. Just you and me. I didn't even hesitate. Yeah, I'd like that. A week later, we met up for drinks. Then dinner. Then another night out at a different club where we danced and flirted like it was all just fun and games. Every time I was with Kaylee, I felt free. Like I was living a life that was mine again, not tied down by Lisa's bullshit. But it wasn't just about getting back at Lisa anymore. Kaylee was funny, smart, and unlike Lisa, she actually wanted to be there with me. She didn't make me feel like an anchor weighing her down. It didn't take long before things got physical. And no, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, it felt damn good. One night, after a few more dates and club meetings, I brought Kaylee back to my place. I don't know what I was thinking, it was stupid and reckless, but I didn't care. It was late, and we stumbled in, half drunk, already all over each other before we even got to the bedroom. And when we finally hit that bed, it was wild. Like all that anger, all that frustration just spilled out in one intense night. It was different from anything I'd ever felt with Lisa. No tension, no pretending. Just pure, raw connection. Afterward, we lay there, tangled up in each other, and for a moment, I forgot all about my screwed-up marriage. But the guilt came creeping back soon enough. I knew what I'd done was wrong. I knew Lisa would freak if she found out. But a part of me didn't care. I wanted her to know. I wanted her to feel some of the pain she'd been putting me through. The next morning, I woke up with Kaylee beside me, her head on my chest, and all I could think about was Lisa. It was a twisted feeling. Here I was in bed with a beautiful woman, but all I could think about was my wife. I tried to push the thought away, but it stuck like a thorn in my side. Over the next few weeks, things got complicated. Kaylee and I kept seeing each other, and every time we did, it was like a mix of pleasure and guilt. She had no idea I was married. I made sure to keep that part of my life hidden from her. And Lisa? Well, she was too busy with her open dates to notice what was happening right under her nose. But the guilt was still there, gnawing at me. Every time I came home after being with Kaylee, I'd half expect Lisa to be waiting for me, ready to confront me. I couldn't shake the fear that she'd find out, that somehow, some way, my secret would come crashing down. But at the same time, I felt like I was getting back at her, like I was finally leveling the playing field after all the crap she'd put me through. I started to wonder if I was becoming just as bad as her. But then I'd think about all the nights she spent chatting with her online friends, all the time she'd ignored me to live her adventurous life, and I'd tell myself that maybe, just maybe, I deserved to do this. I deserved to find my own happiness, even if it was in all the wrong places. But secrets have a way of coming out, don't they? And part of me knew that it was only a matter of time before everything blew up in our faces. I just wasn't prepared for how it would happen or how hard it would hit. It was a Wednesday night when it all came crashing down. The night I realized that secrets are like ticking time bombs. You keep them buried as deep as you can, but eventually they explode, whether you're ready or not. That day, Lisa had gone out on yet another one of her dates. By then, I'd gotten used to it. She'd leave the house looking way too good for some casual dinner, and then waltz back in hours later like it was the most normal thing in the world. And me? I'd just sit around, pretending not to care, my mind split between anger and apathy. On this particular night, I was just trying to kill time until she got home. Maybe I'd see Kaylee, maybe I wouldn't. The whole thing felt like a screwed-up game. I remember sitting on the couch when Lisa came home that night. She walked in, smiling, a glow on her face that hadn't been there in years. And I'll admit, it twisted me up inside. Knowing she was out there with some guy, having a great time while I sat alone like an idiot, it made my blood boil. But I didn't say anything. I couldn't say anything. We'd reached this unspoken agreement to not ask about each other's nights, to act like none of it mattered. "Hey," she said, tossing her purse on the table and kicking off her heels. "What are you up to?" "Nothing much," I replied, keeping my eyes on the TV. "Just hanging out." It was awkward as hell. I could feel her looking at me, trying to figure out what was going on, like she could sense something was different. I tried to play it cool, but inside, I was screaming. And maybe she felt it, maybe she knew something was off. But instead of pressing me, she just headed to the bedroom, saying she was going to freshen up or some nonsense. I thought I was in the clear for the night, but fate had other plans. The next morning, the tension was thick, but we pretended like everything was fine. We had this unspoken dance of pretending that our open relationship was working, that we were mature enough to handle all the baggage. But that night, Kaylee called, and that's when it all went to hell. I told Kaylee to come over like I'd done a few times before when I knew Lisa would be out. Only this time, my luck ran out. I thought Lisa had her plans, another date, another night out, but she came home early, real early. Kaylee and I were in the middle of, well, we didn't hear Lisa pull into the driveway, didn't hear the front door open. And then, bam, there she was, standing in the doorway to our bedroom, staring at us like she just walked in on a murder scene. For a split second, nobody moved. It was like time had frozen, and all you could hear was the heavy, panicked breathing. Then Lisa's face twisted, anger, disgust, betrayal, all flooding her expression at once. Are you kidding me?" she screamed, her voice cracking in a way I'd never heard before. "In our bed? With her? You're cheating on me, Tom?" I scrambled out of bed, grabbing whatever clothes I could find to cover up, my heart pounding so hard I thought it had burst out of my chest. Kaylee was frozen, eyes wide with shock, not knowing what to do or say. "It's not what you think," I yelled, though even as the words left my mouth, I knew how stupid they sounded. "You wanted this Lisa. You wanted to see other people, remember? This is how you interpret that?" She fired back, tears streaming down her face, voice raw with fury. "You bring some slut into our house, into our bed, and then blame me for it. Don't you dare call her that." I snapped, finally finding my voice. "You've been going on dates, doing whatever the hell you want, and I'm supposed to just sit here and take it? You're the one who wanted an open relationship. You made the rules." She lost it then, really lost it. She threw things, whatever she could get her hands on, a lamp, a glass, clothes, all hurled at me in this chaotic rage. "You don't get it, Tom. I wanted something to make us better, not to destroy everything. You piece of... Destroy us? You did that all on your own." I roared back. "All your bullshit about needing excitement, about feeling alive. This is what it led to. You pushed me away, Lisa. You wanted me to be okay with you screwing around. And now you want to play the victim?" Her face twisted into this pained, almost broken expression. And in that moment, I almost felt sorry for her. But then she lunged at me, shoving me hard in the chest. "How dare you," she hissed. You betrayed me. I can't even look at you right now." She turned and stormed out of the room, and all I could hear was her sobbing as she ran out of the house, slamming the door behind her. And there I was, standing half naked in our bedroom, Kaylee looking at me like I was a stranger, my whole world spinning out of control. I muttered something, an apology, an excuse, and Kaylee got dressed in a hurry, bolting out of there like the place was on fire. I was alone, and that's when it hit me. The whole thing was crashing down, and there was no coming back. I sat on the edge of the bed, my head in my hands, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me. I'd done it. I'd let my anger, my need for revenge, destroy whatever was left of our marriage. And as much as I wanted to blame Lisa, part of me knew I was just as guilty. Hours passed and I didn't move. I just sat there, replaying the fight over and over in my head, the words we screamed at each other echoing like some twisted mantra. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. All I could feel was this sick mix of anger, regret, and something else, something that felt an awful lot like shame. The next day, Lisa came back, not to talk, not to fight, but to gather her things. We didn't say a word to each other. She just packed in silence, her face blank and hollow like she was on autopilot. I tried to stop her, tried to say something, anything to make it right, but she shot me a look that stopped me dead in my tracks. A look that said, "We're done." As she walked out the door with a suitcase in hand, she paused for a second, turning back to me one last time. "I don't know who you are anymore, Tom," she said, her voice empty, drained of all the fight and fire it once had. "But I know I can't be with you. Not like this. Not after everything." And then she was gone. Just like that, it was over. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, staring at the closed door, trying to wrap my head around what had just happened. The silence was deafening. This heavy, suffocating quiet that seemed to swallow the whole house. In that moment, all I could think was, this is it. This is the end. And it was the final argument, the final blow to a marriage that was already on life support. I just never expected it to end this way. Not with shouting, not with tears, not with me standing half-dressed in a bedroom that still smelled like Kaylee's perfume. But that's the thing about revenge, isn't it? It feels good in the moment, but it leaves you standing in the wreckage, wondering if it was ever worth it. If you've ever gone through a real breakup, not just a "we had a fight, let's cool off" kind of thing, but a true gut-wrenching into a marriage, then you know the silence afterward is the worst. It's like you're stuck in a vacuum, surrounded by the deafening roar of all the things you should have said and done. And that's where Lisa and I were after that blow-up. She was gone for a few days. I didn't know where she went, and honestly, I didn't ask. I just stayed home, replaying every word of that final fight in my head like a movie on repeat. Every insult, every accusation. I kept thinking there might be some way to fix it, that she'd walk through the door and we'd sit down like adults and figure out where the hell we went wrong. But as the days dragged on, I knew that was a pipe dream. Eventually, she came back, not to reconcile, but to talk. She walked into the house like a stranger, her eyes cold, her voice flat. We sat across from each other at the dining table, the same table where we'd shared 1,000 meals, and the space between us felt like an ocean. "Tom," she said finally, staring down at her hands, "we need to talk about what happens next." "Yeah," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "I know." There was no yelling, no crying. Just this dull, aching finality that settled over us. She told me she still wanted to explore open relationships, that she needed to find herself and live her truth. And I just sat there numb. I'd heard it all before, and I was too drained to argue. In her mind, this was a journey to self-discovery, but to me, it was just her way of leaving everything behind and pretending it was a spiritual awakening. So, divorce, I finally said, the word hanging heavy in the air between us. "That's what you want." She looked up, and for a second, I thought I saw a flicker of doubt in her eyes. But then she nodded. "Yeah, I think it's for the best. We can't keep doing this, Tom." It was like a punch to the gut. But in a way, it was a relief too. A relief to have it out in the open, to stop pretending like we were going to make it through this mess. We agreed to meet in a couple of days to talk logistics, assets, finances, the whole painful process of splitting a life in two. But the moment she left, it felt like the house crumbled around me. The walls seemed to close in, and I was left sitting there alone at that table, staring into the space where my marriage used to be. And then there were our friends. God, what a nightmare that was. I'm sure Lisa spun her own version of events to Sarah, her best friend, who was basically her cheerleader throughout this whole ordeal. I knew Sarah never liked me much. She'd always been the one whispering in Lisa's ear about how she deserved better and how she should live her life to the fullest. And once the word divorce was out, she jumped right into action. I heard from some mutual friends that Lisa was spending a lot of time with Sarah, talking things out, seeking support. I didn't care until one of those friends told me they'd overheard Lisa saying she was excited to finally live her truth and dive headfirst into open relationships. And Sarah was all for it, telling her it was about time she found happiness. That stung, like a knife twisting in the wound. I tried to stay away from that whole scene, but there were whispers, rumors, people picking sides without knowing half of what had gone down. It was like high school drama, only with lawyers and property involved. Meanwhile, Sarah invited Lisa for a weekend getaway to clear her mind, which to me was just an excuse to party and convince Lisa that this whole thing was some kind of empowering move instead of the dumpster fire it actually was. And then came the actual divorce proceedings. You think it's going to be quick and easy, like ripping off a Band-Aid, but it's more like peeling off your own skin, layer by layer. We sat in those meetings, hashing out the details of who gets what. It was a circus of legal jargon, half-hearted apologies, and cold, calculated decisions. Every item, every dollar, every piece of our shared life had to be accounted for and split. It was brutal. "You can keep the car," she said, flipping through papers like we were dividing up groceries. "And I'll take the apartment. It's closer to my work anyway." I tried to fight back, but the truth is my heart wasn't in it. Every time we talked about splitting our stuff, it felt like driving nails into a coffin. I knew Lisa wanted her independence, wanted to feel like she was breaking free from the life she thought was holding her back. And I just wanted it to be over. Of course, the arguments didn't stop just because we were going through the motions. There was always something to fight about, some piece of furniture, some shared account, some stupid thing that neither of us really cared about, but became a battleground in the war that our marriage had become. One time, we got into a shouting match over a damn coffee maker, a cheap piece of crap that probably cost less than one of our dinners. But in that moment, it wasn't about the coffee maker. It was about everything that had gone wrong, everything we couldn't say out loud. I felt like I was losing more than a wife. I was losing a part of myself. The anger, the betrayal, it consumed me, made me feel like I was drowning. So I did the only thing I could think of to survive. I started focusing on myself. Dan, ever the fixer, dragged me to the gym one day, saying I needed to sweat the pain out. At first, I hated every second of it. The weights, the cardio, the grueling workouts, it felt like punishment. But over time, it started to feel like release. Every rep, every drop of sweat was a way to burn off the anger and frustration. I threw myself into other things too, new hobbies, anything to keep me from sitting alone in that empty apartment, wallowing in self-pity. Photography became my escape. I grabbed my camera and just go, anywhere that got me out of my head. And slowly, I started to feel like maybe I could breathe again, like there was life beyond this nightmare. And Lisa? Well, she threw herself into the dating scene. I'd hear about it from friends, from social media. She was meeting new people, going out, living that adventurous life she always talked about. At first, it made me sick to think about it. Her out there, pretending like she was having the time of her life, like everything we went through didn't matter. But then, as the weeks passed, that sickness turned to numbness. And then to something else, indifference. Maybe we were two people living separate lives, moving in opposite directions. And even though part of me wanted to hate her, another part, the part that was too tired to care, just wanted to move on. The divorce dragged on for what felt like forever, but eventually, the papers were signed. Our marriage officially became just another statistic, and the last few years of our lives were reduced to signatures on a dotted line. When it was finally over, I sat in my empty apartment, surrounded by boxes of my stuff, and for the first time, I felt relief. Not happiness, not joy, just this weight lifting off my shoulders. It was done, and whatever came next, at least it wouldn't be this. After the dust settled, after the divorce papers were signed, and after we were officially over, there was this strange emptiness, like walking through the ruins of a war-torn battlefield. You'd think the finality would make it easier, right? A clean break, a fresh start. But the truth is, you don't just flip a switch and move on. It's more like crawling out of the wreckage and trying to figure out who the hell you are without the person you thought you'd spend your life with. I tried not to think about Lisa much, but she was always there, lingering in the corners of my mind. And of course, social media didn't make it easy. There she was, smiling with new faces at bars, on hikes, at art shows, living that open lifestyle she'd been chasing. She looked happy, or at least that's how it seemed on the surface. But every now and then, I'd catch this hint of something else in her photos, a look in her eyes, a shadow behind her smile. Maybe I was imagining it, or maybe she was as good at pretending as I was. Either way, seeing her out there, moving on like I was just a phase she'd outgrown, it burned. Lisa started dating. A lot. At first, she threw herself into the world of open relationships, going out with different people, one after the other, like she was trying to catch up on all the years she felt she'd wasted being tied down. And for a while, she seemed to enjoy it, the excitement, the new faces, the feeling of being free. But I guess freedom isn't all it's cracked up to be. I heard through the grapevine that she was struggling to find something real. Apparently, all these adventurous guys she was meeting were fun for a night, but none of them stuck around. She was looking for something deeper, but couldn't find it in the flings and casual hookups. Funny, right? The same person who blew up our marriage to chase excitement was now missing the one thing she'd left behind: connection. The kind of connection that takes time, patience, and, maybe a little bit of boring stability. I guess it shouldn't have surprised me when she called one night. I almost didn't pick up. Seeing her name flash on my phone felt like a punch to the gut. But curiosity got the better of me. "Hey," she said, her voice softer than I remembered. "I know this is weird, me calling like this. I wanted to check in, see how you're doing." Yeah, I mumbled, still processing the fact that we were actually talking. I'm good. Better, I guess." There was this long pause, like we were both trying to figure out what the hell we were doing. And then she started talking about how she'd been trying to live this new life, trying to make sense of everything, but how it wasn't as easy as she thought it'd be. She didn't say it outright, but I could tell she was struggling. She missed the comfort, the familiarity. She missed us. "Sometimes I wonder if I made a mistake," she said, and it was like hearing her say the words out loud put a crack in my armor. But I didn't let myself get drawn in. I knew better. "Well, that's something you've got to figure out, Lisa," I said, my voice steady, like I'd rehearsed the line 1,000 times. "We made our choices, and now we've just got to live with them." She sighed, and for a moment, I thought I could hear tears in her voice. Yeah, I guess you're right." And that was that. She didn't call again, and I didn't reach out. I wasn't about to get sucked back into the chaos that almost tore me apart. But still, I couldn't help feeling like that phone call was some kind of turning point for both of us. As for me, I started to rebuild, slowly but surely. After Den got me hooked on working out, I threw myself into fitness, taking on new challenges I'd never considered before: rock climbing, running, swimming. It wasn't just about looking better, though I won't lie, that was part of it. It was about feeling like I had control over something again, like I could take all the anger, the resentment, and sweat it out until there was nothing left. I also started traveling. Nothing crazy, just short trips to places I'd never been, hiking up mountains, camping under the stars, learning how to appreciate being on my own. There was something about standing on top of a peak, staring out over a sea of trees, that made everything feel manageable. Like all the crap with Lisa, all the hurt and betrayal, was just a tiny speck in a much bigger world. And then there was Kaylee. Yeah, that's right. We reconnected. I ran into her at a coffee shop one morning, and it was weird, awkward. She knew about the divorce, of course. Word travels fast, but she didn't know how to approach me, like she was trying to gauge whether I hated her or not. But the truth was I didn't. Not even close. We sat down, had a coffee, and talked. Really talked. She apologized for how things went down, for getting caught in the crossfire of my imploding marriage. And I apologized too, for dragging her into my mess, for using her as some twisted form of revenge against Lisa. But as we talked, I realized something. I like being around her. And not just in the way I had before, when it was all about escaping my problems. This time, I wanted to know her, the real her, not just a distraction. We took it slow, real slow. No rushing into bed, no wild nights out. We got to know each other in a way we hadn't before, and it felt good, genuine. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was building something new, something healthy, instead of just clawing my way out of the past. Of course, there were moments when the past came creeping back in. Moments when I'd see Lisa's face in my mind, or remember the good times we had before everything fell apart. And yeah, it hurt, but it didn't destroy me. Not anymore. I guess that's what moving on is, isn't it? It's not about pretending like the pain never happened. It's about accepting it, letting it be part of your story, and choosing to live anyway. Choosing to build a life that's yours, not defined by someone else's mistakes or your own failures. Lisa and I, we went through hell, and we dragged each other down along the way. But in the end, we came out the other side. Bruised, scarred, but still standing. And maybe that's enough. For me, it was the chance to start over, to find something better. For her, well, I hope she finds whatever it is she's looking for. Maybe one day, she'll realize that happiness doesn't come from chasing every wild experience, but from knowing who you are and what you truly want. And as for Kaylee and me, we're taking it one day at a time. No big plans, no expectations. Just seeing where it goes. And for once, that feels like more than enough.